मुनिवर्यान् नरता वासुदेवस्य Word translation. Yataha, as much as dharma adhyayah, all four principles of religious behavior, cha and arthaha, purposes, munivarya, or yourself, the great sage, anukirtitaha, repeatedly described, no, not, tataha, in that way, Vasudevasya, of the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, Mahima, glories, he, certainly, Anuvartitaha, so constantly described. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality Vasudeva. Purport. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord Shri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and salvation. These four items are by far inferior to engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. Sri Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference, and still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. From this, it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in the pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or the Brahmabhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahmabhuta stage, one is satisfied, but satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. One should progress by attaining neutrality and equality in the relative world. And passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of Godhead to the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahmabhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of transcendental realization, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he, Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from gross despondency. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanajnanashalakaya Chakshurangalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadavayam Dadati Sakatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavaksha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitamshcha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Yati Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshakarine Vancha Kalpataru Vesha Kripa Sindhuvadesha Paditana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Mukesha Bodhika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasani Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I seek the blessings and the lotus feet of all children Vaishnavas. I have no qualification and realization and purification to sit on this holy pure Vyasasana, but to honor the request of the authorities and to glorify the Lord, I speak something for my own purification. So kindly have the blessings upon me. So welcome all for this Srimad Bhagavatam class. So this is the Canto 1, Chapter 5, entitled Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So to understand the background of the scene here, Vyasadeva ji was looking at the misfortune of the people of the Kali Yuga with his divine vision for the welfare of the people, considering sacrifice mentioned in the Vedas would purify the occupations of the people. So he thought basically the different sacrifices which are mentioned in the Vedas, that will be instrument in purifying the people. And to simplify the process, Vyasadeva divides one Veda into 4. And he also writes historical facts and authentic stories in the Puranas, as it is called 5th Veda. So after these 4 Vedas, Puranas and historical records, where after he wrote this particular thing, he passed on this knowledge to his different disciples. And these different disciples in the disciplic succession, of those 4 Vedas and the 5th Veda, which is Purana, this knowledge was given in the disciplic succession to the common mass. Because Vyasadeva ji thought that this would be the better thing to do, because the purification processes, the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas would be helpful for the common people, for the salvation. Further to this to help the common mass, especially women, Shudras and friends of the twice born. Friends of the twice born means the people who are by name Brahmanas, but they are not following any rituals or any obligations required to be followed by the Brahmanas. Such people, for those people, contaminated people, to achieve ultimate goal of the life, he writes then what? Mahabharata. So his mind was still not satisfied after writing so much. He writes Vedas, he writes Puranas, he writes Mahabharata, but after writing this all stuff, he is still not satisfied. Although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of the society. So whatever he has done, basically it is for the welfare of the people. It is not like something for his own satisfying the ego, he is doing something. But despite doing such a welfare activity, he is not satisfied. So he is thinking in his mind, maybe the reason for his dissatisfaction, he points out that probably he has not pointed out the devotional service in the scriptures he has written so far, which is very dear to the perfect beings and to the Lord. So the glorification of the Lord, or the bhakti description, is something which is very dear to the people who are at the level of Sattva Guna or the Shuddha Sattva, and it is also very pleasing to the Lord. So when Vyasadeva is regretting his defects, like this, his Guru Maharaj, Narad Muni, reaches in his cottage, the cottage of Vyasadeva, at the Saraswati river. Of course, being cultured, Vyasadeva respectfully welcomes Naradji. And Naradji inquires with the Vyasadevji, saying that, are you satisfied by identifying with the body of the mind as objects of self-realization? So he is indicatively trying to tell Vyasadevji that whatever he has written so far in terms of Veda descriptions and the 4 divisions he has done, or the other Puranas he has written, that is primarily what? It is primarily helping people to identify with their bodies and not with their souls. So you have fully described the subject of impersonal Brahman. So primarily the Vedas deals with the Brahman realization of the God. And after describing this, you are still not satisfied. You are still despondent in spite of this. So then Vyasadeva inquires from his Guru Maharaj, Naradji, that you please tell me what is the root cause of this despondency. After writing so much of literature, I am still feeling despondent, dissatisfied. What is the root cause of it? So this is where the scene is set basically for the text 8 and text 9, which are texts which are in line with each other. In the text 8, it is said, Sri Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So if there is no enough glorification in the Shastras written by the Vyasadevji, that is worthless. That is what Naradji is telling to Vyasadevji. In the text 9 he says, which is the text of the today's discussion, although a great sage, so he is firstly glorifying the Vyasadevji, saying that you are so glorious, and you have very broadly described the 4 principles, beginning with the religious performances, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. So this is the diagnosis which Naradji gives to Vyasadevji for his dissatisfaction. Now what we have got in this to learn for ourselves? Now after writing so much of literature, he is the author of this all Vedas and different Puranas, but he himself is not satisfied by that literature writing. So what are the chances that people who are reading those Puranas or those Vedas, or the divisions of the Vedas, that they would be satisfied? So there must be something wrong in principle, what is been written by the Vyasadevji. So to understand the shortcomings of the Vedas or the remaining Puranas, of course Bhagavatam came as the last course, so it has come later. So firstly, the shortcoming is that Vyasadevji has described Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha in the Vedas and the Puranas. So if you see previously, the Brahmachari ashram and the Brahmachari students, they used to go to the Gurukula and they used to learn there the Dharma. What is Dharma? The 2 kinds of dharmas we have, right? One is the Dharma of a body and one is the Dharma of a soul. So primarily the body of a Dharma, that is what is being described. So you have to learn, you are expected to learn that particular Dharma in the initial stage of your life. Then you are expected to use those principles of Dharma, and dharmically you are expected to earn the artha, the money. Not just by any means, whatever you have learned, Dharma, you have to use those principles, and you have to use those principles to earn the money, artha. And once you have earned that artha or money, again you have to use those dharmic principles and have to satiate or satisfy your kama vasanas. Of course not irregularly, within the guidance and the jurisdictions of the leverages provided by the Shastras. And once you have done this, then you have to take the path of nivritti, and you can probably look for the moksha at the fag end basically. And if you see in the Gita also in the first chapter, Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Arjuna had this particular knowledge and he was confused totally that what is my supreme dharma. Because Arjuna was similarly, what has been described in the Vedas, Arjuna was identifying himself as a body and he got confused with the different dharmas of the body. So he could not decide for himself that what is the best thing for me. So similarly here, in the Kali Yuga, we see if it is not so practical, logical also, it is further degraded in the Kali Yuga and we see practically how is our education system today. And what to speak of teaching the dharma, basically even the correct historical facts are not being taught currently in the education system. And when we only teach, or they only teach basically how to make the living, pushing all the generations into the rat race. So dharma will not work, today's education system is not going to help us. The third defect in the Vedas and the other Puranas is the Vyasadevji and his disciples, to whom he has entrusted those 4 Vedas, they have glorified other devatas. Like there are 18 Puranas, out of that we say that 6 are for the people in the Sattva Guna, 6 are in the people, 6 for the people in the mode of Rajoguna, and 6 for the people in the Tamoguna. That is how the division is. And the Puranas, especially for the people in the Rajoguna or Tamoguna, they have the descriptions of the worship of the devatas so that they can worship them and get what they want and saturate themselves. So when Vyasadeva, somebody can ask this particular question that if that is not effective and is not something which can give the satisfaction, then why Vyasadeva wrote those all things at the first place, right? Somebody can ask this particular question. But Vyasadeva was thinking about the welfare of the all society. And all society means there are all categories of the people in the society. So it has never been possible, or it will never be possible that we have all the Sattva people in the society. There will be Tamoguna people also, and the Rajoguna people also. And it will be practically, for some people, impossible to come to the stage of Sattva. So how the upliftment or the elevation will happen of such people? So they have to be given the devatas who are themselves are in the mode of Rajoguna or Tamoguna. So when they see them and when they follow them and when they deeply think that what that particular devata is doing, there's some kind of elevation might be possible. That's why we see today also a lot of followers of the Shiva or the Kali or Ganpati. They sometimes be very sattvic in the Shravana Mas, they do that particular elevation, or some other religions also there are some purification processes has been given. So by not following or not coming to the stage of Sattva, whatever stage they are, Rajoguna or Tamoguna, there is some elevation can happen. So that is the reason that the broad-minded intelligence of the Vyasadevji, that why he wrote even the other stuff when he was writing. Nextly, to transgress, like for example, it is said here that it is important for somebody to come to the stage of Sattva to understand the bhakti. But is it possible for everybody to elevate to the stage of bhakti? I mean, we see that practically that it is next to impossible for some people to get up in the morning at 4 o'clock, for the Brahma Muhurta time. Or how much it is possible for people to give up the non-vegetarian food. Rather, people do not come to organization in the ISKCON because when they see the devotees and their lifestyle, they are so scared that they might have to give up this all stuff, and that is the reason they do not even come, right? So that is the state, and that the years, decades pass basically, coming to the stage of realization and to the point that I need to get purified and live it. So it is not easy thing. Even a small thing like tea and coffee, to give it up, it is very difficult. I mean, it takes years basically. I see practically in my life, I come from the Kokan belt. There is a place called Malvan, that is the residencies, and those people are categorically very well known Malvani food. It's a very non-vegetarian food and seafood and all that it is famous for. But somehow I could give it up, but it took me a long time to give up tea and coffee. It's the last thing basically. And we see today also in our community, we take herbal tea or soya coffee and all that, because that sense of taste is there and we want to feel, that memories and imprints are there in the mind of how glorious time we had previously. So we wanted to have that. So it is not so easy. So for such people, in the Puranas and some part of the Vedas, glorification of the devatas, which are in the Rajan Tamogan, has been is there, so that at least the people who are in such a mode can follow this particular devatas and some elevation can happen, some verification can happen, so that gradually they can come to the stage of Sattva. So Narad Muni is saying the people are anyway attached to the sense gratification, and by writing these all Vedas and such Puranas, you have given them the extra boost basically to follow what they were anyway wanted to follow. So Krishna says also in the Bhagavad Gita that when the creation happened, he created what? He created Devatas, he created Yajna, and he created Manusha. So Manusha is expected to do the Yajna, satisfy the Devatas, and Devatas are expected to give what Manusha want for their sustenance, and that cycle will continue. So the Bhoga, Tyaga cycle basically, or the cycle for the material sustenance will continue. And Narad Muni is saying that what you have written like this, because it is more forcing people to indulge in the sense gratification, what we have written up till now is the garbage. And who comes to feast over the garbage is all the crows. So what you have written is a pilgrimage place for the crows, and the swans will not come there. Now, what is the difference between the swans and the crows? It's the famous thing, the swan, if you mix them the water and the milk, they'll only suck the milk and the water will be left. So the people like swan, or those people who are Bhagavatas, or the people who are the Shuddha, or Shuddha Sattva Gunas, they are not interested in the materialistic thing, they are not interested in sense gratification, they are not interested in these kind of things. They are only interested in the glorification of the Lord. So such people will never get attracted to Vedas and other Puranas. That is what the point Narad is making. So he also, I was reading hearing some lecture basically from the Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he was trying to make this particular point that in our community also some devotees recommend that we should not directly present Krishna consciousness. We should indirectly present Krishna to people. We should take a garb of being a welfare organization or a vegetarianism promoters and stuff like that, and indirectly we should try to give the Krishna consciousness. But there's a problem in that is, he also, we see practically that for some new people it is recommended. Some people say that it is recommended, you do not wear a tilak, do not wear a dhoti, just try to give them something at the morality level and then try to uplift these people, and then you give the real principles of bhakti to them. But the problem here is it is the same. Like Vasudevji also tried to do the same thing. He tried to, give the indirect message to the Vedas. He didn't give the direct information or the knowledge about Krishna and the bhakti to the people. And that has been reprimanded by the Naradji's Guru Maharaj. So the same thing can happen here also. We might have all the good intentions, getting down to the level of the people. Vyasudeva recommended, also karma kanda and demigod worship, etc. So that coming down to the level of the people, they might like you, they might accept you, but what is the actual message, they never will understand, and you might remain at the level of morality only. So that is one more fault of remaining in the teaching business or studying the Vedas. So he was giving the example of how I think many of us have read the book called Salted Bread, right? How it was difficult in initial times basically to teach Krishna consciousness in the Russia, and people were imprisoned, tortured and stuff like that. So you never know, we have the favorable condition today, that favorable condition remaining or not. For example, today also we see in India what is happening there. Government is little bit pro Sanatan, and we need to take the maximum benefit of that. If you do not do that, we never know that next government will come and whether they'll give us these leverages or not. Today we also know the South India what is happening. Sanatan Dharma has been identified as a dengue and God knows what not. the people have already started mixing cow fat, in the Tirupati laddus, and all the contamination possible is coming in. So what do we get out of this? So today's favorable condition, we cannot guarantee that it's going to remain with us in the future. So whatever opportunities we have, whatever favorable time we have, we must use that particular time to propagate Krishna consciousness, bhakti, and not to lose this particular time. So that even Prabhupada, when he had started this particular movement, he had not even, it was most difficult for him to teach the Krishna consciousness or bhakti to the people who are hippies, right? It was most difficult. It was very easy and it's excusable for him to get to the level of morality and tell them something else, and then indirectly try to give the message. Did Prabhupada do that? He didn't do that. He directly gave the message of Krishna consciousness to these people. And exactly the same Balkum is telling to Vyasadeva that do not beat around the bush. Don't try to give it indirectly, don't play around the words. Give the message directly, because this is the emergency. When even Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj gave him the instruction, Prabhupada was not known, Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was not knowing him, but he gave the direct instruction to him that you please preach, like that. So considering, of course, we cannot be adamant about the whole thing. We need to consider the time, place and circumstances, and what is most favorable we need to do as far as the preaching is concerned. But we should not get away, or we should not turn around from giving the direct message. I remember myself when I was in Singapore for my work purpose. Initial times, maybe 2001, 2002, we were not allowed. Our Shiksha Guru Purushottam Maharaj, he was telling us that, he was not allowed. We were not allowed to wear dhoti, we were not allowed to wear tilak and go out, basically. I remember when we used to do the kirtan also, we were instructed that keep the voice low, or keep the doors shut and windows shut, basically, and that is how we used to do whatever bhakti we used to do that time. Of course, I do not know the condition. Today might be a little bit liberal and they might be allowing it. But that was the condition, and this condition we do not know how long it will prevail, how long we will have this opportunity. So whatever opportunity we have, we should propagate, we should try to dissipate this particular knowledge which Vyasadeva has given in the Bhagavatam. And we know for the matter of fact that how Prahlad Maharaj is a very vivid example. Like Prahlad Maharaj was having this particular knowledge of the Bhagavatam basically through Naradji in his womb, Mother Kayadu, and he was not fearful. He was teaching. His father was a demon, and he was not beating around the bush, right? He was teaching very openly, very boldly to his friends and everybody. Even he is trying to preach his own father. So why we should be, garbing around and not disguising ourselves or not spreading the message of Krishna consciousness directly? So this is the point he was trying to make, which is of course everybody will have their point of view, and we are nobody to comment on anybody's use of whatever method he wants to spread the Krishna consciousness. It is his prerogative and it is his personal relationship with the Krishna, in whatever capacity one does, it is all welcomed and glorified. But we should be as direct as possible. Haridas Thakur is a great example. Again, he was beaten in 22 marketplaces, but he didn't run away from the message. He gave the message what was to be given to the common mass. He has chanted Krishna's name very loud and clear. So like that. So God can be realized, as it is said, in the three ways. Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and the personalized Bhagavan realization. And Vedas, the Krishna has been described primarily in the Brahman form, and some places in the localized form. Now, maximum bliss can be achieved in the personalized Bhagavan realization only. Otherwise, in Brahman and Paramatma realization, there is a lot of dry philosophy. The compiler of the Vedas himself, is troubled. Although he is the author and he has given this, and he is not satisfied, and that is where the inception of the Bhagavatam happens. So that is an important point. Now we need to understand basically what is the need for glorifying the Lord through Bhagavatam, or which teaches the pure devotional service. So in the personal Bhagavan realization, there is the interaction, seva, katha, and hence is the maximum bliss possible in the bhakti only, right? In the Brahman realization, it is all dry philosophy. We could be somewhere in the Brahma Jyoti and there is no interaction, there is no prasad, there is no kirtan, there is no interaction with the devotees, there is no seva. Right? So it is going to be dry. So why bhakti is important or Bhagavatam is important? Because it gives us the most pleasure in the God realization. In the purport it is also said that to maintain the status quo of the Brahma Bhuta stage, now in the Bhagavad Gita 18.54, the definition of the Brahma Bhuta stage has been given, and there are two definitions of the Brahma Bhuta stage. One is for the impersonalist and one for the personalist. Impersonalists are the non-devotees, we can say for time being. So for the non-devotees, impersonalist, achieving Brahma Bhuta stage means becoming one with the Absolute. And that is the last word in the realization. But in the personalized or pure devotees, for the pure devotees, it goes even beyond engaging in the pure devotion service of the Lord. So, as far we or as the devotees, we engage in the service of the Lord in the Dasanuda stage, because that is the stage possible when we know our constitutional position, right? We are what? So that is our constitutional position. So as far we are in that particular constitutional position and we are serving the Lord, we are in that state of Brahma Bhuta stage. There is no separate endeavor is required basically to be in that particular stage. So as far as we are devotee, so in the devotee association, as far as in the service, we are in that particular state of Brahma Bhuta. So there is no separately anything is required to be done. For the impersonalists or the non-devotees, this world is miserable. And materially infected people, that is the reason they want to run away, and then that is the reason why they run behind the mukti. But for the devotees, this whole world is Vaikuntha. Why this whole world is Vaikuntha? Because for them there is no other business other than serving the Lord, right? There is a famous story, that there is a Guru Maharaj and his disciple, and the three kind of people come to him. One is butcher comes, what do you call it? Kasai comes basically, the butcher comes and his guru is all good, so he tells him the blessing in the Sanskrit. The meaning of that is that you don't die and you don't live. And his disciple is listening. Other guy comes who is a kind of a yogi, and he tells him the blessings that you die immediately. And the devotees come and the guru says that you die or live. Right? So disciple could not understand what is this blessings. It is reverse, right? So he inquires basically what is this blessing, please tell us. So he says that there's a butcher, there's a kasai, I gave him the blessing that you don't die and don't live, because if you die, because your karma is so ghastly that you are unable to go into the hell and suffer there, so do not die. But you do not live also, because today also in the condition you are living, where you have blood around you, dead bodies around you, it is also living hell basically. So for you both the places are hell. There is no point. Either ways it is bad for you. When the yogi comes, he gives him the message or the blessing that you die immediately. Why so? Because for achieving the perfection of the salvation, yogis are doing a lot of hard work, austerities. So he is anyway in the pain kind of. So if he dies in that particular state of consciousness, there is a possibility that he might get the purification or the liberation. So he gives him that particular blessing. But when the devotees comes, he gives the blessing saying that you die or live. So it doesn't matter, because for the devotees, they go to the hell or they go to heaven, they go to earthly planet, wherever they go, they have got only one business, to chant the holy name and serve the Krishna. So for everywhere, be that Vaikuntha, be that hell or be that material planets, everything is Vaikuntha for the devotees, because that is what the consciousness they carry all the time. And such a stage, actually, it is the mercy of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when we read the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, we see there are so many references of the Srimad Bhagavatam has been given into that. So Mahaprabhu is teaching how to do the bhakti in the Kali Yuga, and Gadadhar Pandit, who is the personified incarnation of the Radha and Indirect, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are discussing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we need to take, if you want to have a bliss in the life, you must take the shelter of the Bhagavatam, otherwise it is not possible. In the purport it is also said that Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that the Vyasadeva should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. These two words are very important. Which are ones? Eagerly and repeatedly. We should propagate the bhakti very eagerly and repeatedly, the path of devotional service. This will cure the gross despondency. So whatever despondency, dissatisfaction we have, if you do this, if you being eager in the bhakti and if you being repetitive in propagating the bhakti, you will get the satisfaction. So this is the mantra what has been given. And so we could talk and preach the devotional service as the goal of the life. And we see practically what Prabhupada has done, right? I mean, he's a great acharya. His name is Ananda Bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. Prabhupada has given any book you lift up of the Prabhupada, he only talks about the devotional service. So he's following basically the instruction of Narada Muni, what is given to Vyasadeva, that all the time repetitively describe the bhakti. Even if it's describing the Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, at the end of the Prabhupada will say that this is not applicable in the Kali Yuga, so do not follow this, but follow what? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Yavakevalam, Kulana, Sevana, Sevana, Sevana. So whatever state, whatever philosophy he is talking about, ultimately he has that particular knack to bring everything culminating to the devotional service. So that is the glory of Srila Prabhupada. So then someone can ask that why, Vyasadeva has, this whole yoga system has been described. What is the need of it? Of course, there are many perspectives to it, but one of the perspectives, like we said, first perspective is that Vyasadeva wanted to, he was thinking about the upliftment of the whole society and take the think of the elevation of each category of people. That is one reason. But also the other reason is that when you have the comparative study done, you understand things better. So when you know what is Dhyana Yoga, what is Ashtanga Yoga, Sankhya Yoga and all that, when you know this all, you understand the glories of the bhakti. Like when you go to any shop and you ask for product, he'll give you 5 products, ye bhi hai, ye bhi hai, ye bhi hai, ye bhi hai. And you're confused. So you tell him what, ye sab chodo, mujhe jo sabse acha hai wo bata. That is what we say. The Srimad is the same thing basically. So Naraji is giving him the instruction that what is the best of all. Best of all for you. Even in the Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about all yoga systems, right? But ultimately what does he say? Also in the 6147, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gatettara atmanam shraddhavan bhajante yomam same yuktamo matava. So he says that of all yogis, he who always abide in me with great faith, worship me in transcendental loving service, that's he's talking about the devotional service, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So while he is giving himself so many yoga systems, he is also telling us that what is the best among them all. Like that shopkeeper we are asking, right? And even Arjuna is a very smart devotee or smart disciple of the Arjuna, Krishna, and what is he saying? Yachya sami nishitam bruhitam. You please definitively tell me what is best for me. So do not please entangle me or mesmerize me by telling me so many Veda systems or so many other things. Tell me what is the most beneficial for me. So you should be also like that. Again, it is the same principle. The Narada Muni is also telling that you have wasted that time writing so much of things which is not ultimately, it is going to push people into the materialism. So bring them out of it and directly give the bhakti. So that was the point. So Vyasadeva himself has to use this particular formula of being enthusiastic and repeatedly preaching the message of bhakti for getting the satisfaction and contentment. Then what is our position? Do we think that there is any other way in the world to get the satisfaction and not to get into the despondency or the contentment? It is not possible. So like Prabhupada, we took the example. When Mahaprabhu says that, Mahaprabhu propagates the bhakti, he says that, jare dekho tahe kaho Krishna upadesh. He is not telling that, usko ye batao, usko wo batao, baad mein usko dhire dhire bhakti pe lao. He is not telling that. He is telling, whosoever you meet, please give him bhakti directly. Talk about the Krishna directly. And we see on the contrary, basically in the mundane writers of today's, they'll want every book to be written with a different angle, different perceptions. If it is repetitive, they have been considered bored and they will be out of market. But Prabhupada is hammering the same point in all the books, all the purports, all the chapters. So that is what we should also can take it up. But while this is all is done and said, there's a lot of reservation and there's a lot of we don't still preach, right? So what are the reasons that we do not preach, we do not people? One of the reasons is, I was thinking about this thing to myself basically for my own purification. So one of the reasons is that we think that we are ourselves are not following completely. How can we tell others, right? I mean, this is one of the reasons that I myself is not completely following to the nut and bolt basically. So how can I tell others? So we need to understand that we are all sadhakas, right? We have taken the admission in the school. We have taken the admission in the school doesn't mean that we are all perfected. So we are all in the process of perfecting ourselves. And this process itself is going to purify us. So spreading the message of Krishna is a part of a process of perfecting ourselves. So even in the school and colleges, you know, we have met anyone saying I have completely perfected. We have not met anybody up till now. In the bhakti also we have spent so many years that somebody has ever said that I have perfected myself completely and there is no more for me to do the work. It never happens like that, right? So everybody is in the rather we are, the more we progress, the more vividly we can see how imperfectly we are following the path, or how imperfectly we are doing the things, how imperfect we are basically. So that is something which is always humbling us. So even Vyasadeva, when he got this particular instruction, he didn't wait, right? Let me perfect myself and stuff like that, right? He just started writing Bhagavatam and gave this particular message. So whatever little we know, whatever little we practice, we should tell others so that it becomes an instrument for our own improvement. When Prabhupada got the instructions from his spiritual master that you should preach this message to your English speaking students, and you should take this particular message in the English speaking world, that was the instruction. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was knowing that whether Prabhupada was perfect or imperfect or not, or what. Ultimately what is important is that message, what is it trying to propagate, is perfect. We are all in the boat, same boat. We are ourselves are basically trying to perfect ourselves. But the message, what we are trying to propagate, there is no contamination to that. That message is very pure. So we should have that particular consciousness that even if I am not perfect, by following it, I am trying to perfect myself, and this process itself will get me that perfection. And as he said, that is, of course, as argumentation happens between his Guru Maharaj and him, and he says that it is a state of emergency. There is nothing more important than spreading the message of Krishna to the whole world. So why should we waste time giving it directly, like Vyasadeva was trying to do? You know, he was trying to give the indirect message. So Narad Muni came and corrected him that give the direct message. So why should we also try to beat around the bush, try to give the message directly as Prabhupada did? So the other is basically that, you know, we might not be perfect ourselves, but what we are teaching is the perfect thing. You know, what we are teaching is the perfect thing, and there is no tinge of flaw into that. So that kind of a conviction we have. So if we have a little faith in our Guru Maharaj, we have a little faith in our process given by the Prabhupada and our Gurus, we should teach to the others. I remember myself, my father was a chain smoker. Of course, he died at the age of 52 when I was in the 9th standard. But just before a few years, I remember my discussion with him, and he was telling me that, you know, that Sandesh, please ever do not touch this cigarette or any other things, you know, which will addict you. I know he's a chain smoker himself, and he's telling me that. He told me that, you know, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I'm addicted to it, so it is very difficult for me to come out of it. But I'm telling you the truth. There is no fault in that truth, that if you get addicted, it is very difficult to come out of it, so never touch it only. So that is the message. So there is an authenticity in the message, people will accept it. So even if we are not perfect, but the message which we are giving, that is perfect. And if we tell it authentically, with the complete sincerity, people will adapt it. So we should not run around from that particular fact. Sometimes we think that, I myself is not having 100% conviction in the Shastras and the message of the Shastras. This is the second impediment basically why we do not preach. So the counter argument to that is that you start preaching and you'll get automatically convinced, right? Because when you have to preach, you have to study, when you study, you get convinced. Like in the school it is said that if you want to master the subject, you need to teach, because if you teach, you study and understand it better. So likewise for us also, even if you are not going to have 100% conviction, but you should preach and teach so that you become perfect in the process. Thirdly, the impediment is that you don't have a time. So, we see the Prabhupada, who is an Acharya, and that last famous video of his, basically he's on the deathbed. Completely his body is so bad and completely only the bones have remained basically. In that state also, he's giving the message, translating and speaking on the dictaphone. Now, who else can be in bad state than that? And who else would not want to take out the time and relax and have a nice time? But in that state also, he is preaching. So this is a great example for us basically, that not having time is not the excuse at all. In the fourth example, a fourth reason why people do not preach is the shyness to speak. And they say, apni kamiyan khamiyan dusre ko dikhana kyun, basically when we preach, because there's so many faults we have. We cannot pronounce Sanskrit properly, we cannot practice it. School mein Sanskrit Thane, whatever we do. So these are the impediments most of the people has. But we are not supposed to preach to impress anybody. We are supposed to preach for our own purification and for own betterment basically. So if you that consciousness, if you preach, it will benefit us the most. In the Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18.68 and 69 that the one who tells this secret to my devotee, there is no servant to that in this world more dear to me than that. So he's telling that the person who is propagating this particular discussion between me and you is the most devoted, and there can never be a devotee more dear to me than that person. So that is what Krishna is telling. So there is a great hope for us. Like somebody can say that Krishna is telling that tell this message to the devotee, but we see around the world there are no devotees, right? Most of them are not devotees. Then how do we understand this? Are we telling the message of the Gita to the non-devotees? So I had asked this particular question to some Prabhuji, I don't remember who. But he told me that, we are the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He is the Krishna in the bhava of Radharani. And who is she? Is Radharani? She is the most beneficent, most merciful. So because we are that, without seeing the qualification, disqualification, we need to preach. Because we do not know basically how many of them might be just waiting for this particular knowledge to come to them to purify it. So why to take a chance? Who takes it, takes it. It is nothing to do with it basically. We should do our job and give what we are supposed to give without looking at the disqualification or disqualification. But one thing we should do is basically that when we preach and teach, we should not start with Sarva Dharman Parityaja or Manmano Bhagavat Bhaktu, because not everybody in that particular state of consciousness to accept that real fact, that is the Guhyam, right? Krishna talks about many confidential, more confidential and most confidential knowledge. So we do not start the preaching itself with the most confidential knowledge. We should talk and begin with something like, what is the goal of life? That is a good way to progress, that good way to start basically. And when we start that, and when some verification happens and there is some basic understanding of the Shastras comes to the person, then we can start slowly giving the internal messages of the Bhagavad Gita. Nextly, that we cannot preach, then at least become the instrument in preaching the way or the other. Invite people, distribute books, get into the management of arranging this kind of programs. Yeah. So by doing this, we can get complete satisfaction, complete contentment. We will be able to perfect our lives, and that is the instruction in this shloka of today's Nanak Muni, who is the master, spiritual master of Vyasadevji, telling him that preach this, repetitively and with enthusiasm. So those were the few thoughts I had for today. If anybody has any comments, we can discuss that. Or else we can stop there.
Hare Krishna, wonderful class, Prabhuji. I have two questions. So, पहला क्वेश्चन है Prabhuji कि for example अभी किसी ने भागवतम भी पढ़ा है and simultaneously that person is reading Shiv Puran. I know that person. Now that person is under the impression that everyone is God. Like Shivji is also God. If he reads Shiv Puran, तो उसमें शिवजी का glorification होगा. तो उनको ऐसा लग रहा है कि हाँ सभी सेम ही है. तो वैसे ही स्टेज में हमें क्या करना है इसलिए हम कुछ कर सकते हैं या फिर we can only pray to Krishna?
No, actually, we should be able to, I remember this exact same question was asked to, I don't remember, some Maharaj here, this particular question was asked. And how he responded to that is that he said that first of all, why did Vyasadeva ji wrote the Shiv Puran? Because had he known the crux of the whole thing is Bhagavad Puran or the worship of the Krishna, why should he write about Shiv Puran or Ganpati worship and Durga worship and so many other worships in the Shastras? Why it is there in the first place? So he was responding to that particular question saying that do what make. There will be people in this world who will always remain in the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. Like we discussed, right? It is so difficult to come to the stage of Sattva Guna. Getting up morning at 4 o'clock and living non-vegetarian food, even living, forget about these are the gross aspect of, but forget about the subtle aspect of, Brahmanical culture. It is very difficult. So some people it is very next to impossible to come to that particular stage. Now Vyasadeva is very magnanimous. He is thinking of upliftment of all the people. He cannot just focus on the people who are in the Sattva Guna, who will be only can accept and digest that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not possible. So some people will remain, do what make in the mode of goodness, mode of Tamoguna and Sattva. So he is thinking basically how the upliftment of such a people can happen. So he is glorifying the devatas who are representative of Tamoguna and Sattva. Tamoguna and Rajoguna, which is Shivji is basically. Unless until these people have got the conviction that such a person or such a devata is the supreme, they will not be able to follow it. But when they dedicatedly, sincerely, as per the Vedas, they follow such a person, they see that what Shivji is doing. Shivji is a tapasvi, right? He is doing always a tapasya. So he can learn the renunciation from that. The Shivji telling the Parvati that Parvati asked that what are they doing? Who are you doing the meditation on all the time? You are doing the tapasya. She said that I take the Raman. I enjoy the names of the Ram, like Sahasranam is equal to one name of Ram and 3 names of Ram is equal to the name of Krishna. So when they see this, slowly the upgradation, improvement happens. But not everybody has to go through this particular process. Like Prabhupada went to US, many of the people, they are what to speak of the Tamoguna, but they are even below Tamoguna, Chandala category or something like that. We speak, they are the cow eaters. So, but they become the Sattva devotees or the purest devotees ever. How that happened? So when such a people come into a Mahabhagavata or such a strong creature who is so purified or so prominent and exalted, that devotee has got the power to do that and convince such a people. So for such a people, that is the way. One day grow slowly, or they come in contact with such exalted Mahabhagavatas that they get convinced. See, it is said no, the purification is the force. Probably, I am telling and you might not get convinced because I might not have that purification. But when Radhanath Maharaj says, the thousands and lakhs of people get convinced because he has that level of purification. So when you tell or I tell, probably we might not have that, so they might not get coming. So maximum what we can do, probably tell them this particular fact, and if we can facilitate bringing them in contact with the Mahabhagavata, probably that will help them. That is what I think.
One more question, Prabhuji. In the purport, I think the first sentence, Prabhupada mentions that Vyas have deliberately avoided glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, why deliberate avoidance is mentioned?
So there are two things again. Firstly, that deliberately avoided because we said no, like in our community also, that some people think that we should not preach directly. We should roundabout way preach. We should take a garb of we are being, what is that? Welfare organization. We are promoters of the vegetarianism, and slowly we give the message so they can it becomes malleable, adaptable for such a people. That is the one reason. And second reason, he still wanted it to write it all because such people who are in the mode of ignorance and tamoguna, who cannot come to the sattvaguna to accept the worship of Krishna directly, for such a people there has to be some way of some elevation possible. So he writes that deliberately. Of course, he himself is the incarnation of Lord. So he does what he does with the purpose. So that is the purpose, I guess.
Thank you.
So, Prabhupada,